Welcome back to the Premier League show, and I'm sure as a former Spurs player you're delighted to be talking about Arsenal top of the table this season, but they did lose at the weekend, and after a couple of, the draw with Chelsea, are they having a little bit of a wobble, do you feel?
Yeah, I really didn't see it happening, to be honest. I kind of felt they were just going to be steady. I thought, regardless of whether or not they'd win matches, I thought they would see games through. I thought defensively they were so solid that they weren't going to give away goals the way they did the weekend. So I'm surprised that they've gone to that stage now where they've lost a couple of points, and they didn't get themselves to a point where they were so far ahead where you felt it was a foregone conclusion. It felt like it potentially was, but now everybody's starting to creep back up, and you can see they've got the bit between their teeth. They're looking, that hunt is on, and if they get a run in January like we know they've been capable of doing in the past, then who knows. But yeah, I think Arsenal will be a little bit worried about what's happened in the past. They don't want that coming to the forefront of their mind, but they're still, for me, the most informed team. They're solid across the park, abundance of depth in the squad, and can compete on multiple fronts. So I still think I think they're very strong.
Is it that, it's that centre-back pairing that everyone's spoken about, and then we've also said, oh, hang on a minute, they've got strength in depth, they've got players that could come in. Is that what's kind of the bit that actually everyone's saying maybe it is all about Gabriel and Saliba?
Yeah, I think so. I think it seems like when they had that capitulation before, when Saliba got injured a few seasons ago, that was a massive fault in them. But you feel like Declan Rice sitting in front helps a little bit. The players they were bringing in the squad, fullbacks, Calafiori's in there now. They seem to have a little bit more about them that they can cope with one of those players being out. But I think there was a little chink in the armour against Villa where they conceded that goal, and I get that was just a very untypical Arsenal goal to ski. It was scrappy in the box, they didn't clear the lines, bounces around, and then Villa come up with a last minute winner, whereas I would have absolutely nailed them on to see that game through. So maybe teams will think they can be got at, but I still think they're a very strong squad.
Can they cope without Declan Rice, do you think?
I don't know. It was a worry when Saka was gone because I think he's so influential.
Yeah.
Odegaard, again, another player, but I feel like Eze's been able to come into that and adapted really well. But Declan Rice is something different, isn't he? He's, again, another player that, as an Irish eyes, he always had such high expectations for him. Unfortunately, it's not for us, it's for someone else. Yes. But the quality is there. The way he commands games, the way he sees it through, he can read danger, he can be attack, he can be defence. He's just an all-round midfielder, and we spoke about Bruno Fernandes and Man United captains and people that lead from the middle of the park. That's what Rice is to me. Not so much vocally, but in performance levels with tackles and passing. So I think he is a key part of that squad, and maybe that'd be the one that if you're to lose, you potentially. But at the moment, he's okay.
You did talk about the fact that one thing we can rely on this season is kind of the inconsistency around the other teams. So. That said, are Arsenal still your title favourites?
Yeah, at the moment they still are. I think Haaland has been sensational for City, and there's been a few players like Foden is getting back to a level which it's kind of scary if you're another team looking, because you think you don't want him playing the levels yet because you know what he can produce. And then there's Doku is in there, players that are producing. So you feel City are getting back to something. But just Arsenal, I just think have just had the edge for a little while now this season, and I feel like that there's been a steady shift, kind of just going through the motions comfortably without actually having to really unload big performances. And I said that the other teams, the likes of Chelsea, the likes of Liverpool, Spurs, Man United, all those teams, none of them are really competing. Villa have done extremely well to get back in there, but look where they were at the start of the season. So I think Arsenal kind of consistency, which is something I think they're the ones.
Slow and steady, almost. Okay, look.
One thing we can tell you is that there are three players who we might have hoped to see out there in this training session who aren't out there. Declan Rice, Arsenal fans, isn't out there with the rest of the team doing these early warm-ups. We're told that after having that little issue towards the end of the victory over Brentford, of course he played the whole match at Villa Park, but he's doing his own work in the gym at the moment. Nothing too much to worry about. We understand he could still be on the plane to Bruges later. It's one of those that we'll need to check in with Mikel Arteta a little bit later on, but he is training just away from the rest of the squad. Also not out there is Leo Trossard. He's had a little injury niggle, hasn't he, of late? He came on at half-time at Villa Park, scored, and then went off again. So they're obviously being careful with him. They're obviously managing his minutes. They're managing his training regime. I'm told he's also probably away elsewhere down here at the London Colney training ground doing his own work. And sadly still no William Saliba out there. For a matter of a couple of weeks now, certainly 10, 11 days, we've had Mikel Arteta at news conference after news conference being asked about William Saliba picked up that mysterious knock. We're still not really clear about what it was in training ahead of the Chelsea game. We've been told it's been a matter of days for the last 3 news conferences, and he's still not out there. Again, potentially could be ready to travel, could be ready to be involved in Bruges, but doing his own work away from the rest of the squad. Potentially you would have thought Saliba probably won't travel. They got Wolves on Saturday. Maybe he'll be ready for that game to try and get another win under their belt to try and increase that gap at the top of the Premier League table back to the kind of size that it was before that defeat at the weekend. But yeah, those 3 players not out there. So yeah, defensively, of course, is where the attention is with injuries, despite the fact that Declan Rice isn't out there at the moment and Leo Trossard isn't out there at the moment. There have been 26 different injuries of different sizes to different players, lasting different amounts of time so far this season, second only in the injury table to Leeds, actually. And most of them are back. 4 injuries at the moment, confirmed injuries and confirmed as out. One of those, of course, is Kai Havertz, whose long-term still isn't out there. And 3 of them are in that central defensive position. So we've got, as we've mentioned, William Saliba out. Mosquera now going to be out for at least 6 weeks, we're told. And, of course, Gabriel is still out. So in terms of defence, it's not the biggest problem in the world at the moment for Mikel Arteta, because Ben White came on, played his first game in ages against Brentford, won a man of the match, so he'll go on the right. Timber will come into that central defence, I would have thought, tomorrow night alongside Nkapie. And they've got the choice, of course, of Calafiori or Lewis Skelly on the left-hand side. Now, you would have thought, with the Calafiori having picked up a 5th yellow card against Aston Villa, he can't play against Wolves at the weekend, so maybe he'll play tomorrow night and Lewis Skelly kept back for the weekend. But yeah, there's plenty of potential selection issues for Mikel Arteta. They've been enjoying these warm-ups as they go to Bruges. Bruges not in the best form, of course. They've just changed their manager. They're way down in the Champions League table, but they have had a couple of decent results at home in the Champions League. Remember, in the playoff stages, they beat Rangers 6-0 at home. They've also had a draw with Barcelona and beaten Monaco. So although Arsenal may be able to afford to make a few changes to the lineup at the weekend, they'll need to be on their guard that there's not another unexpected good performance from Bruges. Top of the table, of course, in the Champions League. The only team with a 100% record, the only unbeaten team in this season's Champions League. But of course, all eyes as well on trying to get that win that you would expect them to win against Wolves at the weekend, just to make that gap back to somewhere where it was. 2 points, City breathing down their neck, Villa breathing down their neck. It's just not a comfortable position for Arsenal, who remain, of course, Premier League favourites.
Arguably, Stephen, the reason why Bournemouth have been so great is down to this man, Semenyo. He is a fantastic player. Manchester City and Liverpool both looking at him. Who needs them the most out of those 2, do you think?
Realistically, if you're Semenyo, you'd love to go to either of those clubs. I think Pep, the appeal of playing under Pep is amazing, but if you have Haaland in front of you, then you're kind of thinking, am I going to play? Liverpool, they've just spent half a billion on centre forwards and attacking players. Do you go to them either? I'm just pushing the Spurs narrative, to be honest. This is my argument for him to go to Spurs, because you're going to play every week. But realistically, do those teams need him? Listen, everybody would love to get in a striker that's going to score you that amount of goals from now to the rest of the season to help you whether clinch your title or get you in the Champions League positions. But for him, it's going to be based around game time, I presume, as well. Are you going to play? Are you going to start ahead of those players? Liverpool, I'm not too sure they can go into that window again unless Salah goes, potentially financial money in, then that might open something up. But I would say both of those sides, Liverpool need him more because they're not firing. And City, as a backup for Haaland, would love him, I'm sure. But do you want to go as a backup? That's the question.
Is that the only reason then that you're kind of pushing him to Spurs? If you had your agent hat on, how would you sell it to them?
Yeah, I'd be selling it that way. As a player, if you gave me, and listen, I'm a Spurs fan, but if you gave me actual concrete choices of Man City, Liverpool and Tottenham, it'd be very hard for me not to say Man City. Just because you're going to Pep, you're going to that squad, you know what he's done, you know your best chance of winning a medal, and in your career it's short, medals don't come around that often, is probably with Pep. That's the one you bank on, best chance of me getting something. So if that's what's in your mindset, you go there. But if you're thinking game time, legacy, what I can do for a team, if they're building a team around me, have they got the foundations where we can kick on, then Spurs would be the one. And listen, it's very hard for me as a Spurs fan. I would always want to sign for Tottenham, but you're going just purely as a professional and what's best for your career and playing wise. And like I said, those medals around your neck are what you do for.
Yeah, I hear you. When you sign for a club, is that what you get told? You get told things like, we're going to build the squad around you? And
not so much as a fullback, I don't think.
No,
but as a centre forward, I think so. Yeah. No, listen. Every club you sign for, the reason why you sign to them, because they portray a level of confidence in you. They show how much they want you. The manager, listen, you're not supposed to have a conversation with the manager, but it usually happens. You have a phone call. They lay out what they think of you, what they see your role in the team being, how important that's going to be. And that's what then makes you make that decision. That's usually what gives you then, right, that good feeling, I want to sign for this team. I feel like this is where it's going to best develop me or best place for me to go. And it is usually that conversation with the manager or someone involved in the club that's that clincher, and it makes you feel like good intentions from them that's the place for me.
Yeah, it's funny you say about they don't often do it, but Arteta's been quite vocal about the fact that he does have these big conversations with, and that kind of what swings it for these players.
I think you have to. I think as a man, I think it's been the way through years, and listen, clubs can't really admit to doing it because it's seen as going behind the back. But if you're going to sign for a team, you're going to sign for a manager, if he's going to be your boss, ideally you want to have a conversation with him to see what he thinks of you and to see what he believes you can do for them. And that's what it comes down to. I remember my conversation with Steve Bruce when I was leaving Spurs to go to Birmingham, and he called me up, had a conversation. I just thought, this is the guy for me. This is the one that's going to get the best out of me, just from the confidence he portrayed in me as a player, and that's what sold it for me.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Do you think this noise that's surrounding him at the moment, this many, has kind of turned his head a little bit? Has his form's dipped a little?
You do see it happening, and you feel Bournemouth have been heavily reliant on him and his goal scoring, and you wouldn't want to see them falter because of that. I think you would like to see him still stay on that course of what he's producing, because the reason why he's getting all this attention is because of his performances. And that's that fine line between seeing an opportunity elsewhere but then also letting your standards drop. You have to maintain them if you want those opportunities to still be there when it comes to that point. But I think there's going to be a lot of interest in him in January, and I would say Spurs, considering what they have, look at the issues. They're bringing Tell back into the Champions League squad. They've got issues in the forward areas, like a few teams have, but I think they're probably the ones you think are most likely to try and go and get something done.
You're really selling them, aren't you?
I am massively, yeah, massively.
I hear you. And just in terms of Bournemouth, what will they, a Semenyo in form is huge, isn't it?
He is huge. And you have to give credit to Bournemouth, though. Like Bournemouth, Brighton, Brentford, these teams just seem to be able to have squads depleted, have funds being put back in the squad to a huge extent, but still seem to unearth gems, still seem to find the players that fit the formation. They brought in managers that are really sought after as well, which is tough to hold on to. Like you look at Crystal Palace also. These teams seem to be able to find a way of performing in one of the most expensive leagues in the world on budgets that don't compare to their teams, but they produce and they get the players, and then those players move on and somehow they have that conveyor belt of talent. I think Semenyo is a big loss for them, but I'd have faith that they're already looking to recruit, they're already looking to bring someone in. They might have someone in the works that potentially could come in and fulfill those shoes, maybe not straight away, but to some extent.